Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be looking at a set of death cards that I put together in a way. This is kind of an interesting story, and I don't normally do cards together in one video like this unless they happen to be brothers, and these guys aren't. But so what's really cool, I did happen to get these from the same seller. They weren't listed together. They had no unit information. There was nothing. I always pre-research my cards now that I have Ancestry, just in case it's a unit that I really want or something interesting. And what struck me as interesting was when going through this guy's listings, I saw this unit 588 and I was like, okay, 544. And I didn't think much of it. And then I saw another one for 544 and I'm like, oh, I just saw that. And then when I looked at their date of death, I was like, oh, these guys are the exact same date of death. That's really, really interesting. What are the odds that, two guys from the same unit, same date of death? So, as I said, not traditionally how I would do these videos, but we'll jump in with Josef first as he was the eldest, and then we'll go into Karl's death card. I'll pull up their records so that you guys can see those, and then we'll talk about the cards individually and some, unique things to them and what I found out about them at the end. So, jumping into it, here we go, guys. In memory of my dearest beloved husband, father, and son, Josef Brandmüller, Gefreiter in the Landesschützen-Bataillon, participant in the French campaign, who died a heroic death on March 22nd, 1942, at the age of 33. In the most faithful fulfillment of his duty, near Ssetnoje in Russia. I had to leave my wife and children and go into enemy territory, there to lay down my young life for God and my fatherland. Dear wife, children, and friends, remember me. I sent my last greetings to you all, my dearest ones. Don't grieve too much. It was God's will. Let us honor him. Okay, looking at the back here, we have the sorrowful mother. O all you pass by, take heed and see if there is any pain like my pain. Christian remembrance and prayer to my dearly beloved, unforgettable husband and kind-hearted father and son, Karl Weidinger, Gefreiter in an infantry regiment, participant in the campaigns in Belgium, France, and Russia, who died a heroic death in the East on March 22nd, 1942, at the age of 31. O wife and my dearest children, I will never return home to you. The last thought, the last glance, hastened back to you. When I died in enemy territory, no one reached out their hand to me. But before my eyes were closed, I saw the heavens open. Death of Saint Joseph. Saint Joseph, special patron of the dying, come to our aid in the hour of our death. Amen. My Jesus, have mercy. Indulgence of 300 days each time. Okay, so taking a look at the records, we'll start with Josef. He was born on March 31st, 1909 in Ingolstadt. He was a Gefreiter in the 1st Company of Landesschützen-Bataillon 544, and he was killed on March 22nd, 1942 at Ssetnoje. His grave location is listed as Military Cemetery Schotzka. According to the Volksbund, he has yet to be transferred to a military cemetery as of 10/7/2025. October 7th, 2025 for the Europeans who do the date system differently. Just so you know, going forward, I'll take a quick caveat here, two quick caveats. One, typically, going forward, I don't think I will post a video if they have yet to be transferred to a military cemetery by the Volksbund, unless maybe after a few years they're still not transferred. I know that they are still updating and changing, as things go, as they're always working on. I follow them on social media. They are always doing exhumations, and then the other quick caveat, just because we're about to go into some of the sources. Now, typically what happens when I do these videos, I look up their records on Ancestry, I look up their records on Volksbund. That tells us what, date of birth, where they were from, what may have killed them if that's listed, what unit they were in, and then grave locations, things like that. Typically from there, I go to Lexikon der Wehrmacht. I'll look up the unit, see if I can find some interesting things, maybe where they're fighting, outcome of that unit, if it's notable, whatever. Rarely do I go to Wikipedia for these videos. Now, in this rare instance, when I went to Lexikon der Wehrmacht, there was almost nothing on the 221st Sicherungs division. It tells you what it is, and it tells you a little bit about the Sicherungs, but not very much. So in this case, I went to Wikipedia, and there was a little bit more on there, so I'll just read briefly what I got from them. They were set up, the divisions, as in Sicherungs divisions, which is a security division, were set up at the beginning of 1941, formed primarily of former Landwehr divisions, and they were used for rearguard and anti-partisan activities. All Sicherungs divisions were deployed to the Eastern Territories, aside from the 325th, which was deployed in France. Now, again, these guys were part of the 221st Sicherungs division, and at this time, in March of 1942, the 221st was involved in the clearing of a pocket east of Smolensk, which was, pretty heavy with partisan activity at the time. Now, of course, there's always problems with the partisan warfare in the sense that you never know who is, and people who aren't are accused of it, and all the problems that come with that. But it is known that the Soviets were dropping in paratroopers and supplying the activity of partisans in this area. So the 221st was sent in to sweep out the area and clear it. I suppose there were probably other units involved as well, but again, not a lot of information on these guys. Before this, I don't think I've ever really come across much talking about the Sicherungs divisions. You'll find that from the brief reading I did, it seems that in instances where the front was destabilized and really in need, these guys might get sent to the front to, mend the situation until it can be fixed. But for the most part, these guys were rear line doing anti-partisan things like that. So now looking at Karl's records. Karl was born on May 3rd, 1911 in Grafing by München, which is Munich. He was a Gefreiter in the 1st Company Landesschützen-Bataillon 544, and he was killed on March 22nd, 1942 at Ssetnoje. He also has yet to be transferred to a Volksbund cemetery. So this is one of the things where I was skeptical, when you look up some of this stuff. Some of these guys, they have a lot of information, surprisingly, about where their grave was, and yet the Volksbund says that they were in the area, and unfortunately they weren't able to be identified. Obviously, anything can happen, and I've said it a few times. There's a channel called Crocodile Tear where he does exhumation videos, and you can see the conditions of some of these graves, so it's very interesting stuff. But I was assured that both of them have yet to be transferred. I would have been, skeptical if it says that one of the guys was recovered and they had his information, and the other one is just, we were unable to recover him, or without a doubt. Now, in this case, they both have yet to be, so that means they probably haven't even found wherever this grave location is. Anyway, very interesting, though. I have yet to have a death card for two guys from the same unit, down to the same company, on the same day. I have guys from the same units, from the same divisions, from same, companies, even to certain levels for units I collect, but to the same day. That's very, very interesting. Now, understandably, for a division like this, when they do get into combat, that's probably going to be the main part of their combat. These, whatever few days, they're not always on the front line. It would be so interesting to know, what happened that day. Was the 1st Company sent on a task where a lot of guys from the 1st Company were killed, or was it just that, it was a small engagement and unfortunately these two guys were lost? Who knows? But some very interesting stuff, because again, a unit I've not really heard about as far as the Sicherungs divisions, but just what are the odds? Sometimes you can get some really lucky stuff putting together cards, units, photos, whatever, when the information is there. So this is kind of one of the best case scenario for what a collector hopes to see. Sorry to keep rambling, but I just wanted to dive real quick into some unique things on the cards. For whatever reason, both cards seem to have some sort of damage, whether it's like clipping. It looks like a pretty clean cut, so I don't think it was, it's not torn anyway, I should say it like that. When I go through and I translate the cards, I do always take note of who the printing press was if they are listed. In this case, we can see that it cut across the printer, so I'm not sure who it is offhand. There's only a few letters, but... Okay, sorry about the hard cut there. If the editing seemed weird on that one, I couldn't help but cough at the end of that when it came on. But one last thing I wanted to point out, I guess two last little things. On Karl's card, it's very interesting. This all seems to be drawn in with some sort of pen ink. It's not like extremely wet ink where it bled through to the other side, but that's definitely drawn on there. I don't, whether it was a child or someone drawing it on there just to brighten it up or something. But that's a neat touch that I have yet to have seen on another card. I have seen adjusted dates, locations added to, where they were killed or things like that. But I have yet to see that. And then the other thing that I thought was interesting as well, on Karl's card as well, you see that he, I can't think of the proper term for it, but it's essentially what would be like a Photoshop from the older days where they draw or paint it in this case, the uniform, but sometimes they do it with the medals. There's a term for the technique or whatever. I can't think of what it is. If someone wants to leave that in the comments, I'd appreciate it. Before I ramble on too much more, the last thing I wanted to touch on, what I found interesting on both of these guys' cards, their casualty records. There is no cause of death listed. It's just fallen. So I was curious if that's common for these kind of units, an anti-partisan where they don't necessarily list it, or if in maybe perhaps the more worse sense, after listening to many memoirs and soldiers talking about their experiences on the Eastern Front, a lot of these guys that were involved in the anti-partisan warfare, if they were caught by the enemy or the partisans or whoever they were in the area of, and they were disliked, some very, very horrible things would happen to those people. And I've heard from a few different soldiers telling their stories of things like that. So not to go down the negative rabbit hole, but perhaps it's one of those instances where something very nasty happened to these guys and they just didn't write that in on the card. There's no way to prove that. I don't have any sort of information on the 544th going in, what happened to the first company on March 22nd. That would be great to know, but unless someone else has a book or a unit history that mentions these guys, it's probably lost to time. But it's a very interesting thing that we can at least put this together and somewhat tell the story of what happened that day. So anyways, guys, this video probably went on longer than I anticipated it to. Going forward, I don't expect to do videos like this where two guys from the same unit are really together. Maybe special things, we'll see. But this was a very unexpected circumstance where two guys, same unit, same company on the exact same day. Very interesting. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this one. I'll catch you on the next video and have a great rest of the day.